Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to a re-recording of the first episode of the SMU AthleTechCompliance webinar. I am your host, Rob Boyer, and today we are going to introduce what this webinar is going to be, as well as the topic of interpretations management with a tool we use on our campus called Evernote. So we have used Evernote on our campus here for a little over 5 years, and the first place that we used it on our campus was interpretations management. Before we get into the use of Evernote, we want to maybe set the table a little for what this webinar is going to be, what our hopes are for it, and answer the question of maybe why we are doing this. And our hope is that this webinar will be something that can discuss and demonstrate some different tools that are already out there on the marketplace that can help an intercollegiate athletics compliance administrator do his or her job a little bit more efficiently. Our hope is that it'll be 15 minutes or so of demonstration with time at the end for questions. And we wanted to keep it short because we understand that we're busy people and we don't have hours and hours to spare regularly playing around with technology and learning how to use it. And we're hoping this can show some already existing uses for technology and help shorten that learning curve a little bit. So why are we doing this? Well, a few weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast called Entree Leadership, and there was an episode entitled Find a Way, Not an Excuse. The guest that particular week was a man by the name of Bobby Gruenwald, and he had a great quote, and that was, "Innovation happens within constraints." Innovation happens within constraints. Let's be real. We all have constraints. We all have them. And depending upon the institution you're at, I get it. I've worked at autonomy schools, non-autonomy institutions, and every one of them has had its own unique mix of constraints, whether it's budget or staffing or resources or some combination of those or others. And one of the things that I learned, regardless of that mix of resources and mix of constraints, is that the NCAA manual was the exact same in all of them. And so we are charged as compliance administrators with setting our institutions in a position to where we can say, yes, we are complying with that NCAA manual. And our mix of constraints are going to look different at each of our campuses. One of the most common that I've found at the schools I've worked at has been finances. And one of the things Mr. Gruenwald also said in this podcast is if we had more resources, we would just buy a solution. And that's why we're here. There are things out there that are free or very inexpensive that can help us do things maybe a little bit better and help us in some ways. And so we want to demonstrate what some of those are. We've had some success finding some of those tools and overcoming maybe some constraints with technology at the different stops that we've had. And so with that in mind, we want to make sure that we share that with the profession because that's what we do as compliance people. We help each other. So we will start with signing up. Signing up for Evernote. That's going to be our first step. And so without any further ado, we're going to do that. We'll show the different levels of plans that there are for Evernote. We'll start here, free. Free is good. Free is everybody's favorite word. And so we are going to start here. And Evernote Basic gives you about 60 megabytes of new data per month. With any of these accounts, I want to stress that there is no cap on the amount of data overall that you can save. It's just a matter of how much new data you can have per month. On the basic side, you get 60 megabytes per month, which is about the size of one full-length MP3 album. If you want a more in-depth compare and contrast, it is below here, and you can just find that on the compare plans page. The tier that we use here at SMU Compliance is this premium tier at $7.99 a month. It's also a discount if you pay per year. It's $69.99 per year. I'll give you a little bit of a discount if you do pay for the full year up front. This would provide you 10 gigabytes per month of new data, which is about the equivalent of 3 to 4 MP4 movies that are 2 hours in length. So quite a big discrepancy, one album versus 4 movies worth of data that you could store in here. And we'll go into the different ways, different things that would be stored. If you're, for the context of interpretations management that we're going over today, yeah, you may not use all 60 megabytes of those, but if you start attaching photographs and documents and things like that, that 60 megabytes can go away pretty quick. There is also the Evernote business tier. For the purposes of today, we probably won't demonstrate that. That is maybe a more robust, sophisticated feature, and we are Evernote premium subscribers here at SMU Athletics Compliance, and so it was just more bells and whistles than what we needed. But if that's something that you and your office feel like you need, then that is an option that's available. Before we move on, I want to talk maybe a little bit about competitors versus Evernote. There are a lot of programs out there that does what Evernote does. Evernote is a web-based notebook that can be accessed from multiple different devices, and there are a lot of software programs out there and apps out there that do the exact same thing. Some in particular are Microsoft OneNote or Google Keep, and I know that those might be attractive options on your campus if you have Gmail set up as your campus email client or Outlook as your campus email client. And those programs, they would work very, very similarly to what we're demonstrating today. Our interest is not to shove Evernote down everybody's throat as much as it is to show use for this type of technology in your compliance operation. We have chosen Evernote because there is a desktop application that you can download for your office computer as well as for your mobile devices. And some out there may be operating on MacBooks like we were when I was at the University of Akron, or you might be operating on Windows machines and PCs like we are here at SMU Compliance. And the experience is virtually the same for all of them on the desktop app. And so being able to share information between different machines and operating systems is really important. That stretches over to the mobile devices as well. It's available on the iOS App Store if you're an iPhone person. It's also available on Google Play if you're an Android person. And we have a different mix of phones within our office, and we get to use the same platform, stay in the same program, I guess, more appropriately, if we're all on this Evernote platform. It's not specific to one operating system or one type of machine. So once we have downloaded the desktop application, I'm going to show you what the next step is for that. I've already downloaded it for the purposes of this presentation. So we are recording this webinar, and so if you would like to go back to refer to this particular web page later, this is an article that's on the Evernote website. So if you're not able to refer to this webinar later, this is the website that you can always go to, and so I want to make sure that everyone's able to see that it's out there. And so we're going to start by 3 different ways to get an email or an interpretation into your Evernote account. The first way that we're going to show is the way we used when I was at the University of Akron. That is using the forward functionality. So we'll start here, forwarding test. This below is an example for demonstration purposes of an interpretation that I would have sent a coach using the ever famous June 6, 2000 pre-existing relationship interpretation from LSDBI. Wanted to show the information that is available once you forward it. The premium tier has a unique email address that is already preloaded into my address book. So I just typed it in here, and by hitting send, would forward all of that information to our Evernote account and automatically get entered as an entry into our interpretations log. And again, the forwarding unique email is a feature that's only available for the premium users or above. I can tell you that it is very much worth it having that unique email address, and so it's certainly worth the $70 a year. You're going to use up $70 worth of intern research hours alone if you're not using it. So trust me, it's very much worth it. The next that I am going to do is clipping. Okay, and this is an add-in that's available for Microsoft Outlook for PCs. I am not certain if it's available for Microsoft Outlook for Mac. I can tell you that there was not an add-in available on the Apple Mail client when we operated on MacBooks when I was at the University of Akron. So we used the forwarding function exclusively when we were there because that clipping function wasn't there. But for the purposes of those who use Microsoft Outlook, just want to make sure that you're aware that this clipping functionality is available. And so the clipping functionality, when it pops up, it allows you to not only select your notebook, but add tags, kind of like a photo on Facebook if you would like, as well as getting a preview of what information is going to go over to your Evernote account. And keep in mind that this is from a sent mail perspective, if you will. And so we hit clipping. And one of the things I do want to assure everybody of is it is not just a screenshot of what is on your screen. All of that information got brought over. The subject from to, the date, salutation, body, citation of the interpretation or bylaw, all of that stuff got brought over. And so it's been really a nice tool to be able to clip all of that information over to Evernote with just a simple click of a button. The third is our CC test. So if you have used the CC or the BCC lines in your email client, this would be another option, though not the option that we use. For the purposes of this demonstration, I have prepared the email that is about to be sent. Imagine that your coach's email goes in this to line. I'm going to also insert our unique SMU compliance Evernote account, and I will give this subject line, and I will hit send. So those are three different ways that you can get emails that you're sending for interpretations over to your Evernote account. As you can see, the clipping test, it went directly in there. This notebook was empty up until a minute ago, but it automatically imported that note over to the demo notebook. You may be wondering where the other two are. And so the first one that we sent, again, is the forwarding test. I'm going to move that over right now to demo, and we'll take a look at this. So you'll see it's forwarding. It went in there just like an email. Has my salutation by default, but then underneath it has that same information as the clipping test. It has from, it has to, it has the date that it was sent, as well as the subject, salutation, the body, and the citation. Okay, so all of that information is also captured through the use of forward. The third method, as you can see, just arrived in the inbox, is the CC test. So I'm going to move that over to demo as well, just for the purposes of this demonstration. The CC, the carbon copy, or the blind carbon copy test, I want to make the distinction of why we don't use it. It is a possibility. It's something that is certainly available, but it does not have any of the from information. It doesn't have the to information. If you copy a large stack and only address it one person or so, you lose all that information of being able to show what was sent to whom and when. You can maybe pull the date. It's just not as comprehensive using this methodology. But there is no real wrong way to do it. There are just some that are more advantageous than others. If you're using the basic or the free tier, I think the only possibility that's going to be available for you is if you select a new note and using one of these emails. Say again, this is maybe a sent mail version to get all that good timestamp to from information. Getting it from a forward or another type of reply. Reply may also allow you to do that. Just copying and pasting it into your notebook would also provide that same functionality. So while that's happening, I also want to talk a little bit about how we do things chronologically here in the compliance office at SMU. Every quarter, we have a report that ends up with our university president, where we go over our entire work product, and interpretations are a part of that. It's a report given to him every quarter, and so we report on 3 months of work product. So everything that we do is chronological. It's really important to be able to show these dates, the dates of when this was sent. In this particular case, January 8th. Well, it's not January 8th. We're going back, say, maybe a week or two later and figuring out, hey, when was this actually sent? So we don't worry so much about the time necessarily, but we want to make sure that date is reflective here in the created column of when it was actually sent in the interpretation log entry. And so our created column will line up with that sent log to make sure that it's reflective of that sent date, so that it is taken into the correct reporting period. So everything we do will populate that created column in that way. As a measure of quality control, one of the things that we do is we send all of our interpretations. It's a list when we copy our entire staff. It ends up getting copied also to an overall email address for our office, so we can go back later and just double check, make sure everything got into Evernote correctly. So we don't have to scour through months worth of sent mail just to find maybe 20 interpretations. With that, I would open it up to questions, but since this is a re-recording of our initial webinar, there will be no questions today, but we do invite everybody to join us for our next webinar, which is February 5th, 2019 at 3 p.m. Central. We will send out the link via our normal channels, social media, NAC, NACDA, and we're excited to have everybody join us again February 5th at 3 p.m. Central. It's 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, and I always felt left out when I lived in the Mountain Time range, so I'll go 2 p.m. for those of you living in Mountain. And again, we're excited to reconvene with everybody on February 5th.